Eurozone government bonds have become the key risk indicator, and Dukascopy TV continues to bring you the interviews that matter. This time I'm joined by Vincent Chaigneau, who is the Global Head of Rates at Societe Generale. Vincent, are these elevated bond yields we're seeing in Europe justified, or is it just a case of speculators who are exploiting the situation to drive up yields?
The globally negative sentiment and investors effectively having little appetite for the papers that are being sold. You know, we're seeing some signs that in Greece, in Italy, we are going to have technocratic governments, which hopefully will pursue more credible, more responsible policies. But we are saying that now austerity by itself is no longer sufficient. It remains very much a necessary condition for confidence to return, but it's probably no longer a sufficient condition, because we have now a recession in Europe, and investors are worried that what's happened in Greece could be repeated, maybe to a less dramatic extent, but could be repeated in other countries, and that is a catch-22 situation where the fiscal tightening is causing some economic weakness. The economic weakness itself is hurting the fiscal receipts, the tax receipts. That makes the fiscal targets ever harder to reach, and in that context, it is calling for another round of austerity and so on. So we have that vicious circle that is of course worrying for investors. So austerity remains a must. It is part of the solution, but it's probably not enough to bring a solution. And in that context, we probably need something more. We need a nuclear plan at the European level. It hasn't been delivered so far, and therefore the sentiment remains globally negative. I'm afraid that sentiment will stay negative until we see that type of nuclear plan. So essentially you're saying there's only so much individual governments can do, and there needs to be action on a much broader level. I think so. Effectively, the recession makes it much harder for the countries to meet ambitious fiscal targets. And therefore the market has little confidence that the fiscal trends can be turned around very sharply and very quickly. Therefore, you probably need some other type of intervention to bring stability, to bring confidence back. And those types of actions are either bigger fiscal transfers, i.e. the insurance that the richest countries and the countries where the fiscal situation is relatively sound can help the weak countries to fund their deficits in the near term, or you need monetization. Now the market is worried that none of those solutions are around the corner. There are effectively some very big political and probably even legal obstacles for much bigger fiscal transfers. When I talk about fiscal transfer, typically the Eurobond would be part of that type of solution. But I think before that can be launched, before that can be started, I think we need to go through a number of political and legal obstacles, and I don't think it can be done overnight. Possibly bigger action from the ECB is a near-term solution. I tend to believe that eventually we will see that, but again, probably not overnight, and probably only when this can be justified by the situation at the economic level, at the inflation level in particular, or only if we are really near the precipice and something needs to be done to safeguard the European, the monetary union. What are the possible bumps in the road ahead? Which auctions could cause problems? Next week we've got some DSL and Bund auction. These clearly are not real threats. Later on in the end of the month, we should have some Italian and Belgium auctions again. So we'll be watching those. I'm not saying that we are going to have imminently a failed auction in Europe. For that matter, I believe that the auctions are going to be covered. I think they will pass, and therefore we will not be quite near the precipice yet, and therefore I don't think we will see that type of nuclear action from the policymakers.
Sovereign debt has really been driving risk in the markets recently. Is there a case for there being too much focus on bonds?
This is clearly at the center of the global market action. Is there too much focus? I don't know. This is clearly a worrying situation. I think, we can't really talk about fundamentals anymore. The markets are worried and question whether a number of countries will be able to roll over their debt, will be able to issue debt in the market, and that is creating a great deal of stress. And that's why it's not just a long-term solvency issue. We're seeing also short-dated papers being very much under pressure. So I think it's more, a self-sustained process where investors are getting worried about the capacity of those countries to raise money and to roll over their debt, and we're seeing pressure even on the short-dated paper. So it's a matter of liquidity rather than just solvency, increasingly.
Well, some want the big bazooka, but Vincent Chaigneau there calling for the nuclear plan to solve the Eurozone's problems. There's much more to come here on Dukascopy TV, so don't go anywhere. Goodbye.